Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video, we're going to break down exactly how to use the virtual queue at Universal Orlando. And we all know over the last 2 years, we have seen major changes come to the theme parks around the globe. Now, that is no different within Disney and Universal as they have shifted towards a more virtual and mobile phone-centered experience. And I have to be honest, I really hope it stops here because I do not want to have to experience the theme parks in the metaverse anytime soon. But hey, let's take one problem at a time and let's focus on this video, and that is exactly how you can use the Universal Orlando virtual queue. This is a really helpful video to just help you get through your days in the parks. So let's go get started. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Now, we all know virtual lines at Universal Orlando have been around for quite some time. And we do see them expanding more lines into that sort of virtual queue experience. So if you plan on visiting Universal Orlando anytime soon, this is the process that you need to be familiar with. And this is especially true for some of the most extremely popular attractions like that Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, which you might need to depend on the virtual line in order to get on. So, let's start with the basics. What is the virtual line at Universal Studios? And as we said, Universal has had a virtual queue in place for quite some time, but there have been some significant changes over the years. Now, the Universal virtual queue was designed to allow guests to reserve their spot in line, allowing for a shorter time waiting in the actual line. This is different from the Universal Express Pass, which is a paid feature that allows you to skip the line. Now, with that being said, the virtual line at Universal is completely free. You just have to make sure that you have the Universal app downloaded on your phone. And truthfully, you will really want to just download the app for some of the other features as well and just get familiar with it. But the virtual line system works at both Universal Parks, Islands of Adventure, and Universal Studios Florida, and can be very helpful in cutting down wait times. So first and foremost, the virtual line experience is never guaranteed. Team members do not know if the virtual queues will be used for future days or times, and that means if you are able to use the virtual system one day, that does not guarantee it will be open the next day. And as a former Walt Disney World cast member, guys, just please know that going in and do not take it out on the team members. They honestly might be as up to date as you are, as crazy as that sounds. So the Universal virtual lines even might change throughout the day, and certain rides can start off as a normal standby line and switch midday. Now, the most important thing to know about the virtual queue is that it is all based off popularity. If a ride is in high demand, team members may choose to switch a line to a virtual instead of the standby line. So what does this mean for your trip? Well, you definitely have to be diligent when checking the Universal app or looking for the virtual queue signs posted around the park to see what might be available. Now, when it is available is a very simple concept, and I've dropped this on some of our videos before. I'm from New York. This is essentially the virtual queue of take a ticket when you go to the bakery, right? You ever been to a crowded bakery and you have to take a ticket and you wait for your number to be called? It's essentially the same concept. You join a virtual queue and you cannot go and get on the line to ride that ride until your number is called. Now, I will say one of the other cool things about this is that as you're waiting for your number to be called, unlike some of the other virtual lines or just some of the other systems in the world, right? This means you can go about enjoying your days in the parks. So although I do think the planning aspect is a little bit more difficult, where you do really have to kind of be willing to go on the fly, I will say that I would prefer a virtual line. You're not going to spend as much time waiting in line, which, when you're spending all this money on these theme park tickets, that's the most important thing for me. So I will say that when you can, definitely take advantage of the virtual line. All right, so probably one of the most important questions, and that is which rides have the virtual queue at Universal Orlando? So another important tip to note about the virtual queue system is that not all rides will have them. Remember, we said this is purely based on the popularity of the rides. And with that being said, there are definitely some specific rides at Universal that will utilize the virtual line more frequently. So let's start with Universal Studios Florida. Which rides have the virtual queue system? So we're going to start with Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon, Revenge of the Mummy when it comes back from refurbishment, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, and then Fast and the Furious Supercharged. I don't understand that one at all, to be honest with you. But over to Islands of Adventure, and for Islands of Adventure, it's pretty simple. We're going to have Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, and the brand new Velocicoaster. But out of all of the virtual lines, it is very important that we highlight Hagrid's Magical Motorbike Adventure, because this by far has been the most popular choice, and to be honest with you, in my opinion, it rightfully so. I think this is the best ride in all of Orlando, Disney, and Universal. We also just created a complete guide, the Hagrid's Magical Motorbike Adventure virtual queue, and I will leave a link in the comment section. You can go check it out on our website as well. So now typically we will see a virtual line for Hagrid's early on in the day, and then it can flip to a standby later on. And of course it is important to note that sometimes it can stay as a virtual line the entire day. Now on to the next question, and that is, how can I book a virtual line queue at Universal? So again, the virtual line system at Universal can vary on how it is utilized. Now we personally have booked Universal virtual queues 2 different ways, both using the Universal Orlando app. We're going to talk about them both. Now, if you wanted to ride one of the very popular rides that we've been discussing, we recommend that you start checking the Universal Orlando app from the minute you step foot on property. Now, you cannot do this in advance, and the Universal Virtual Line can only be booked the day of your trip. It's very important. However, the Universal Orlando app will state any rides using the virtual system, or you will see a big blue sandwich billboard with QR codes to scan them and begin the process. And just to confirm, those codes, those billboards will be like outside of the ride. Okay, so the virtual line and kind of scanning the code. So you're going to scan the QR code, and it will open up the Universal Orlando app and select the ride with a virtual queue. So after you select the ride for the virtual queue, you're going to enter how many guests are in your party on the app. And make sure you do this for every single guest, as every single person in your party will need a virtual line pass. Taking it one step further, you can have up to 8 guests in your party. And so now the next step is, if there are any open slots, they will pop up as half-hour time frames. And there you go. Right from there, just choose your time frame. And then once you do that, from there a QR code will populate, and you will use that as your pass for team member to scan when you go back to your attraction during when your time is called. All right, so scenario number 2, and this is a little bit more random. It's pretty much the same exact thing in the beginning. So after you scan or select your Universal Virtual Line attraction, a separate Universal Orlando queue site will pop up on your phone. Now from here, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to select how many guests are in your party. However, on the flip side, Universal will give a minimum return time wait. So from there, you can select the minimum return time wait, or you can change your return time to later if that does not work for you. So now from here, once you selected your desired return time, Universal will confirm and give you a countdown on when to return to that attraction for your virtual queue. And so this is kind of the, a little bit more of on the fly, where you don't have that specific, half-hour time frame to return. So we will say it is important to note that while we were using this virtual queue system, Universal did adjust our return time a few times. So if this is the scenario that you kind of see going on your phone, make sure you continue to watch your app, and make sure you continue to stay up to date on when it is your return to go to the ride. Cool, so now that we have a quick little rundown of exactly what, even though it wasn't quick, the virtual queue at Universal is, let's give you some of the most popular tips and tricks we have picked up from using the system. Now again, tip number 1, and the most important thing to understand, is you may not be able to experience an attraction if the Universal Virtual Line system is in place. Speaking of those popular rides, such as Hagrid's, they might have virtual line systems all day, and you can only enter that line by having a virtual queue pass. So that's why we created this video. Please make sure to plan ahead and get to the parks early, especially if you only have one chance to get on one of these rides. Tip number 2, you can cancel or change your virtual queue pass if something pops up or if that time no longer works. But very important, if you cancel that virtual queue, it is gone and you cannot get it back. Tip number 3, get the most popular virtual queue rides first. Now the most popular attractions, like we said, Hagrid's, Velocicoaster, Escape from Gringotts, they max out and their virtual lines can go fast. So again, as soon as the park opens, start searching for the virtual queue lines and make sure that you grab yours. Tip number 4, screenshot your virtual queue ticket and send it to the others in your party, so if your phone dies or malfunctions, you do have a backup. Tip number 5, if all virtual queues are at capacity, don't give up. Just keep refreshing the Universal app. Sometimes they'll drop more openings throughout the day. And the other thing is, officially, the app suggests checking back around 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m. And tip number 6, I think it's 6, use early park admission when you can. Now, just like it sounds, early park admission can be a huge lifesaver, and the reason being is you get into the parks an hour earlier than everyone else, and you do have the opportunity to get on some of the most popular rides, which, let's say if some of them have a virtual queue, some of them have very low wait times, get the low wait times out of the way, and like we said, if a ride does go over to 100% virtual queue, you just have less things to worry about throughout the day. Now, for those of you watching at home who do not know, here at the Park Prodigy, we are Universal travel agents. Not only that, we do sell Universal Orlando tickets on our website. Now, the other cool thing about our Universal Orlando tickets is they do all come with that early park admission absolutely free. So if you are trying to get as much done at Universal Orlando in a short amount of time, we highly recommend it. And to be honest, we highly recommend it if everything I just went over doesn't sound like an ideal situation to you. Be sure to go and take advantage of the early park admission, again, because you will be able to get on some of the most popular rides. But I think that's all the time we have for today. I think we went over a lot in this video. If I did miss anything that you have picked up along the way, using the Universal Orlando virtual line system, be sure to leave it in the comment section. I would love to learn more about the process and help you guys planning your Universal Orlando trip. Again, I am Mike from theparkprodigy.com. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I will talk to you soon.